Hello friends, welcome back to the bench. We have two patients today. One is 86A, so that's LL Bean, and one is 96A, which is, I think, probably Forrester. Both for the same issue. This one smells like incense. First time I'm receiving something like that. Smelling it smells really good. Like sandal tree or I don't know. Um, Usually the automotive parts don't smell good, or they don't smell at all. They very rarely smell like incense. But this one came in the box where the return address and who is it from was covered by the label from the post office, and nothing on the label from the post office. So I don't even know where it's from. So it took me a while to actually match it to the customer. This was via eBay. That's why there's eBay order on this one. So that's kind of unusual. And actually, I was just talking. See why people don't like or don't trust the mechanics. It's not even about the malice or expecting that the mechanic is gonna screw you over. It's people are afraid of incompetence, right? And the lady that I talked to that has the same issue as we were gonna fix on both of these, she took the car to the mechanic, and she spent $1,200 so far on trying to diagnose why cylinder 6 is not firing. There's misfire on cylinder 6, and they went completely around without what I always say. Sure, you can replace the coil, you can replace the injector, you can check the compression. Sure, you can do it that way, but number one, confirm you have the actual driving signal for the injector, right? Then confirm you have driving signal for the coil. Basics, right? Doesn't really require any tools. $5 on eBay to get the 12-volt LED that you just connect instead of the injector, and you see if it's pulsing. If it's not pulsing, there's your problem, right? Obviously, it's not 5-minute diagnosis because depending on the engine, but usually there's like a big metal cover on the injectors, and the hoses and stuff go around it. So first you gotta remove 4 bolts, and then just kind of wiggle that cover to gain access to the injectors, and then just unclick the injector, plug in the LED, and see if it's flashing. If it's not flashing, there's your problem, right? So sounds simple, but they went completely around and started with MAF replacement. I don't even know why would that cause permanent misfire on single cylinder. I don't think that would be even the case. Suppose that MAF it needs to be replaced. I would expect it to either run rich or lean, that kind of issues, not the permanent misfire. Then I think they checked compressions, and they said that, well, now we need to like replace some sensors on the exhaust, something like that. I don't remember. I have the email, so I can review it, but completely wrong approach. And now the lady is $1,200 into the diagnosis, and the car is still misfiring. And the fix is, well, fix is simple. Maybe fix is not simple, but the confirmation is simple. That's why people don't trust the mechanics. Again, it's not expecting that the mechanic is a bad person, but if the mechanic is wrong or incompetent, well, then the customer is paying the price. It's not exactly fair, in my view. Not exactly fair. But on the other hand, well, we can't hold the mechanic accountable for mistakes, because we're all humans. So yeah, we make mistakes. There shouldn't be this fear of if you misdiagnose, you pay it out of pocket. And still, actually, there is such accountability if you're on the, I don't remember what it's called, a kind of a fixed rate. Certain repair is supposed to take, say, an hour or 2 hours, because that's what the manual says. And so you're paid for 2 hours, right? But if it takes you 4 hours to actually repair it, to actually get the procedure done, then you work for half the hourly wage, right? So there is some accountability, but at least if this didn't help, right, the customer approved that, well, we're gonna do this, right? We're gonna replace the yeah, that's what they want to do. They want to replace the head gasket on H6 engines. If you don't know, Google it. I mean, check it on YouTube. How to replace head gasket on H6 engine Subaru. You actually have to remove the engine from the chassis. That is a very lengthy procedure. A lot of stuff can go wrong. That's not a repair that I would ever attempt. Well, mainly because I don't have tools. If I had a workshop, maybe I would attempt that. But obviously it's gonna cost you. It's gonna cost you a lot, because that's gonna be 2, maybe 3 days. Actually, I don't know, but I don't think you can do it in 8 hours, and I don't think you even should. Like 8 hours straight to perform such a intricate procedure. Again, you're human, so you gotta take breaks, and so that's what they wanted to do next for a misfire. And I don't know if they even confirmed whether there's compression on that cylinder, because if the head gasket is damaged, it might result in lower compression on the cylinder. If the compression is too low, yeah, there's not going to be an ignition, or yeah, there's going to be an ignition, but there's not going to be enough power. So the car will still detect misfire based on the timing, because there was not enough power coming from the cylinder. So that is the main reason. That is the main reason. It's actually, I completely sympathize. I work in this business, so I know it's hard, and I know it's I know the problems, right? And I do want to take side of my fellow technicians, but in this case, I can't. I can't, because no, that shouldn't you shouldn't have been doing that. It's and you can Jesus, you can even Google that. The issue on that car and misfire. You're gonna find my videos. You can you can learn everything about this procedure and what causes it, or this issue and what causes this issue. It's not like a secret knowledge from the Illuminati technicians. it's pretty simple. But that's what that's what the lady had to pay, and no wonder she's a bit upset. right? And in this case, again, I cannot defend the technician because you didn't eliminate the easiest stuff and you started with the expensive stuff. And was that the goal? It could be, we don't know. Obviously, again, don't assume that was the malice from their side, rather, incompetence. But that's how the customer sees it, right? And the worst part of all this is that there's always going to be another mechanic, another technician that will take a look at the stuff you made, and all the mistakes, all the inefficiencies are gonna be rubbed in your face. That's the way it works, unfortunately. Well, unfortunately, maybe fortunately, because we gotta keep ourselves, keep one another accountable. There's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, $1,200. You could have replaced the ECM for that, no problem. A new one from the manufacturer, official parts, class programming and stuff. But in this case, cloning, and the problem goes away. And now, well, anyway, it happens. I completely feel for the other repair shop, because they're actually, I think she took it to the dealership. And yes, there are plenty of opinions that a lot of people have about the dealerships and their services as far as the mechanics go. And maybe that's related to the problem that I keep hearing, that there's not enough mechanics. There's a big shortage. And a dealership also is not exactly known for paying very well. They are usually on those fixed rates, like something's estimated for 2 hours, you get paid for 2 hours no matter how long you work, which could be a good thing if you're handy and you get paid for 2 hours, but you get it done in 20 minutes. But that is a double-edged sword as well, because now you're kind of forced to work efficiently or cut corners so you can make decent money, right? So that might potentially result in crappy work being delivered, because you're more focused on being fast, being efficient, and doing it in very little time instead of doing it well. But that's the nature of this business, the nature of the beast, unfortunately. I'm working on this side project myself, and the same thing, the budget is what the budget is, right? So now if I deliver it in 2 days, 3 days, that's good money. If I deliver it in 2 weeks, that's next to nothing, and I have already worked on it for about 3 days now. I received a list of adjustments, one bug, and a couple features that need to be added. So again, if I manage to get it done today, like everything, then that's good money. If on the other hand I need another 2 or 3 days, that's suddenly a lot crappier money. That's the way it goes. Time is the most important factor in any profession like this, unless you're a night guard and time is your friend. But if you're a technician, time is your enemy. Okay, so anyways, let's move on to some more depressing subjects, or at least more depressing to me. What is that? Which is the job market for the software engineers. It is crazy. I'm on my, day 16 today. So not a huge amount of time that I invested in job search yet, but enough that I can tell something about the job market. And number one is there's a lot of competition, because wherever I turn around, there are layoffs. People getting laid off, much, even, engineers much more talented than I am, better than I am, more experienced or more efficient, getting laid off, so I have to compete with them. Right? No way around that. So on the other hand, not even on the other hand, in addition to that, people not spending money, so all kinds of businesses relying on subscriptions and stuff like that are now experiencing lower months. They need to cut expenses, pause hiring, and even more layoffs. Again, I gotta compete, or in this case, not even compete, I gotta work with that. Second and most important thing that is nothing new, and it has been talked about for a long time now by many YouTubers and many people in general, is that especially pandemic, but not only, our new system of rewarding work is now starting to take its toll. The engineers, software engineers, we work on projects that sometimes are just plainly funded projects, meaning there is an investor or the series of investors that are pumping money into the project with a hope that the project will be more valuable in the future. And the primary metric that is being used is growth, not revenue, not even potential revenue, just growth. As long as you're growing, we don't care how much money you're wasting. So compare that to the typical approach to business, right? You find a niche, you start filling that niche, you gain, you find your first customer, second customer, fifth customer, and you grow along the way, right? So you don't start your business venture by investing $500,000 into marketing campaign and hiring a top talent greatly overpriced and basically expensive. You don't start with that. First you need to make ends meet. Then you slowly take the money that you made and reinvest it into the business. And it's a regular slow growth. It could be fast, obviously. It's not like it's always slow. Sometimes you come up with a business and you're the first one, and suddenly there's plenty of business for that in that niche, and you have almost no competition or no competition because you're the first. You experience very fast growth. So it happens, but on average it's a slow growth. You start with the first customer and go from there, right? That's how it used to work, and in my view that's how it's supposed to work. But nowadays, and it has been for the past 2 decades if not more, you just come up with an idea, you convince rich people that it's a great idea, and you're gonna make tons of money. So they start pumping money into your business so you can grow. And since only the growth is what matters to them, you just focus on the growth. So yeah, you have, if your revenue is 0, but you spend $500,000 in marketing, just so you can show that each month you gained 500,000 customers or users or what have you. That is it's not, I wanted to say that is the new norm, but it might not exactly be the norm. It just exploded in popularity, this approach. And what do investors want? Well, the investors they don't want the product, they want money, right? Can't really blame them for that. That's why they invest. They want to see the return on their investment. So you come up with a great company, great business model and all that, and you keep growing, right? As you keep growing, your valuation goes up. Arch. Thank you. Your valuation goes up, so other investors want to get on that action, which means that now you don't really need to make money. All you have to do is show growth. As long as you show growth, then the value of your company goes up because more people want to invest. And it's kind of self-propelling action without actually producing any value. You are becoming more and more valuable. That is not natural, but again, the investor wants to just buy when it's low and sell when it's high, which created, this approach created plenty of startups, plenty of companies that turned from startups into corporations or were acquired by corporations. And now that the market is what the market is, love it or hate it, but it is what it is. They need to readjust, they need to reevaluate. So some of these projects that started as great idea and were growing very rapidly and making a lot of money, a lot of these investors that originally invested in those already backed out, they already sold out, they made their money, and they're done. They're looking for another venture now. The company has been acquired by a big player, and now they're laying off because they're just checking their bottom line, and the bottom line says, well, we're losing money because we have too many engineers or too many employees in general, and we're not making enough revenue to keep those employees. But that wasn't the problem in the investment period, because only growth mattered then. But now we're done with that. Now we need to actually pay the bills. The growth period is over, and it has to end sometime, right? It can't grow forever. I think that no one disagrees with that statement. You grow to the certain level, and the market is saturated at that point, and now all you gotta do is just balance your books so you're making money, so your company is sustainable. That's usually, well, maybe not usually, but that's how sometimes acquisitions go. You're buying this company that is worth a lot of money, but then it turns out it's not actually worth that much money anymore because there's no more growth. So that put us in this situation we are in right now, where there's just not enough work. For the past decade or even more, maybe 15 years, 20 years, we've been hearing that, you gotta get into software engineering because that pays well, or there's not enough coders on the market. So even if we produced another 500,000 new coders, meaning trained new coders, that would still not be enough. And I've heard that for a long time, and maybe that was the case back then. But now we're seeing the opposite. Now there's too many of us because everybody jumped on the wagon, of easy, simple life. And it was for a while, sure. But now it all has to self-adjust. Just like economy will self-adjust, the job market will self-adjust as well. Come on. Get in there. So, how is my job search going? Well, it's not going well. It is far from well, and I just kind of even stopped this week. I haven't applied to a single listing. And it's not because I gave up or anything like that. No. I just decided I have to change something, meaning, I have to rework my resume, which I started working on. I'm not quite done yet. I need to have multiple versions of my resume, but also I am in the position where I can afford to wait a little longer. I don't have to jump on the first offer that I receive, and I don't have to get a job right away, right? Not to say that I can spend months, looking for a job. I mean, that wouldn't be, I wouldn't mind that if the repair shop brought enough money so I can sustain myself. But that is not the case at the moment. So I do have to, find a job eventually, and eventually soon. But on the other hand, I don't wanna fall into this desperation and just get any job. I would like to work for the company that I like working for, company that I respect, and the business model needs to be there, meaning you have to have a good business model. You cannot be a predatory company, because I prefer to be out of work than work for the predatory companies. And it needs to be just plainly decent work, decent company, and a decent job. That's not huge bar, right? But how many of these companies there are? After the readjustment of the market, how many of them are left that are actually, value companies, valuable companies? Valuable places to work. Likewise, I don't want to, just take the offer from, first offer I get and get laid off 3 months later, which seems to be pretty common nowadays. It used to mean, that you're just, you weren't good enough, right? They hired you, but laid you off after 3 months because, and then speculation. You can speculate. Maybe you lied on your resume, right? You said you're proficient with some technology, and it turns out you had zero experience in that technology, and you thought you would figure it out on the job, but the technology just turned out to be more complex, and you couldn't figure it out on the job. It's a valid speculation, right? It's possible. So, if you get yourself hired in the company that lays you off after 3 months, they're doing you a great disservice, because that's what it could look like. That's how it might be interpreted, that you just weren't good enough. So when picking a job, it's a big decision, because you might impact your career in a very bad way by picking a company that you shouldn't have, right? Especially if the company lays you off, but it's still around and it's still even hiring, right? That's not a good look. That is not a good look at all. So I want to consider all those things before I pick a company. Also, I talked about this company. They never came back to me. I don't think they will, because it's been like 2 weeks now. So I don't think they will. They had 7 core values, and on their application, you are asked few questions like what is our phone number on our website. How many core values do we have? That's how I know they have 7. That immediately is a red flag to me, because normally or typically it's around 3, right? Because these are supposed to be core values, not 12 commandments, but core values. Usually there are 3, because that's a sweet number. Sometimes there are 5. Rarely, more rarely 5. Sometimes 4. Like when I was working on core values for blackhorserepairs, and not even really working on core values, like kind of defining them. My core values were the respect for the customer device, the ownership of the device. So this is your device, and we treat it like it is yours, and we don't do any stuff like Apple does, that you send it over, then forget about getting any data of your device. It's going to be reset, it's going to be cleaned, and all that stuff. Transparency, honesty, and integrity, which should be core values of every human being, if you ask me. But especially in my shop, the transparency and integrity are the big ones. So you could say those 3 or possibly 4 with the respect for the customer's ownership of the device. All right. Now they have 7. I don't remember what they were. I did read them, obviously, but I do not remember what they were. They were not very memorable. Then, of course, the CEO, the guy younger than myself, or at least visually, maybe roughly my age, maybe younger. Well, definitely either my age or younger. That is definitely not older. He does not look older. So that is kind of a red flag as well to me, especially after seeing those opinions from those young CEOs that if you put your status on LinkedIn as looking for work, then I'm not gonna hire you. I don't remember exactly what the rationale was there. I think maybe desperation or something, but if changing your status to looking for work is a sign of desperation, then how do you look for work? Back in my day, in the newspaper you had the listings for looking for a cook, looking for a auto technician and stuff, right? We have work. You want to work? We have work. But also there were ads like, software engineer with this skills and stuff looking for work. It was very common. Now, if you want to see that as an act of desperation, well, maybe that would be closer, because instead of applying to listings, you just list yourself as looking for work in the paper, and you give your, I don't know, name and phone number. I would think if I'm looking for if I'm looking for an employee, I probably wouldn't be checking the paper to see ads from people who are looking for work. So maybe that's, I don't know, I've never done that, so I don't know what the results of that might be, but I wouldn't expect a lot if I made such a listing. I wouldn't hold my breath. But especially now, that it doesn't really matter what you do, it's still gonna be difficult to find work. No way around it. And not even in software engineering, just any work nowadays. The unemployment is low, but I don't know how they measure unemployment, because I don't think the government knows that I'm unemployed. Because they're probably just checking who's collecting unemployment, and those who don't qualify for unemployment, I don't know, do we count them as unemployed as well? So those numbers might not really reflect what actually is happening on the job market. That is normal. That's just the way it works. At some point, sooner or later, you're gonna struggle to find work, and it's gonna be up to you. How are you gonna approach that problem? Are you gonna be, as they say, the CEO of your career, or are you just gonna complain that there's no work? So this guy, I don't remember what his channel is called, actually. I gotta find that out. I am subscribed. 55-year-old, which lost his job due to layoff, and he didn't catch the wave number 1 or 2, or he caught like a very late wave, right? So it's not like immediately he was the first one on the chopping block. So he must have been a valuable employee. But it happened. He got laid off at the age of 55. On top of that, he's overweight. And he talks about that, like in the interviews that he went to. The guy asking, like, are you gonna be able to stand 8 hours on your feet or 6 hours on your feet all day, pretty much? So if that is the question from the hiring manager, then obviously that tells you that this is something that is a concern for them. This is also something that is within your power. And I don't want to sound insensitive, but this is kind of a low-hanging fruit as far as the figuring out, right? You don't have to figure that out. If you've had multiple indications of concern from the hiring manager regarding your weight, then you gotta get rid of that weight. And I know it's easier said than done, don't get me wrong. I've had my weight loss journey. It was not easy, and actually, come to think of it, the first few days of my weight loss, it was actually everything coming together, because that's usually how it is in life. It's not only one thing that's going to go wrong. It's going to be multiple things that go wrong at the same time. That's usually how it goes. So I was diagnosed with a lung disease, autoimmune disease. No known causes and no cure. So I had to stop smoking and I had to lose weight. And normally when you stop smoking, you kind of replace that habit with eating. So it's very common to gain weight after quitting smoking. Very common. So that was especially first few days were especially hard for me. But then I started smoking again. So it was easier. It was easier once I started smoking. Not that I'm recommending anything like that, don't get me wrong. But it was especially hard for me in that regard. So that is a low-hanging fruit for you, my friend. Lose weight. But you're still gonna be 55, or actually 56. And then 57. And it's still quite a few years until the retirement. So he also talks a lot about the age discrimination, and the way he described it was that when you apply, you send a resume, and they invite you for the interview. Obviously on the resume there's no picture and you don't list your weight, right? So they don't, or your age. Then you get to the resume, it feels like it went well, because it always does, because obviously everyone's going to be nice to you, right? So every interview, did I say resume? Every interview is always gonna go well. Well, unless you're, interviewing for a job that you're not qualified for, and then, it didn't go well because you were grilled over some technologies and stuff, and you didn't have answers. I don't remember the name of the channel, but there's a nice channel regarding also those subjects, those topics, and he says that there is no such thing as bad interview, or what was it? Yeah. No, there's no such thing as bad interview. You're just not good for the job, right? But my point, or the age discrimination point. So the guy goes for the interview, and then they tell him that he's overqualified. So his interpretation of that is that it's age discrimination, because obviously they knew how qualified he was when they received the resume, because it lists everything, right? But then he goes in person and suddenly he's overqualified. I don't know about that. I mean, it could be correct, right? It could be right. Maybe he is right. But I wouldn't see that as a definitive proof of such situation, because the recruiting process could be lengthy, and for initial interview you always gonna select a lot of people, and the majority of them you have to reject, and you have to reject them for a reason, right? You can't reject them because they're too old. You can't reject them because of their, I don't know, religion or race or nationality or stuff like that, because it's not allowed. So overqualified is a good reason to be rejected. But his suspicion is that as soon as they saw that I'm not 25 but instead I'm 55, they reject me. But maybe they reject you because you're overweight. I interviewed a fair share of people in my life for software development positions, and one time I had this guy that was also, it kind of reminds me even of this person, the YouTuber. He reminds me of him because it was also older guy, not largely overweight, but obviously overweight, and with disability, so he walked with a cane. None of that bothered me, but two things bothered me the most. Actually, yeah. First, competency. He was not very competent. I mean, he wasn't incompetent, okay, but he wasn't very competent for, the engineer I was looking for. Number two, he was kind of a standoffish, and when you work long enough in this business, you just kind of recognize these traits, right? Like, am I gonna spend 2 hours a day just arguing with that guy about what I want him to do, right? Or is he just gonna do what I need him to do, right? So these were the two things that bothered me the most. But one thing that I have to consider as a hiring person, right? And it's not like it was my autonomous decision to either hire or not, but you need an okay from me, right? My superior needs okay from me that, yeah, this is the guy that I want. And then, in some cases I was negotiating the salary or being involved in salary negotiation. In some cases I was just involved in technical interview, and the salary negotiation was outside of my responsibilities. which means that if I recommend this guy and say that, yeah, I want this guy, well, there is another process that first they need to establish that whether we can afford the guy, or, you know, the money issues basically, right? And I was not involved in that. I don't know what the budget was in some cases. In other cases, I was told this is the budget, and in some cases I just had no budget. I just need a guy or a girl to do this. And I remember looking for an iOS engineer and iOS developer with both Swift and Objective-C competencies, and it took me forever to find one. So I had to learn a lot of stuff to just kind of, you know, get some features done and, you know, maintain the project. And when I finally found the guy, whatever, you know, whatever salary he wanted, I didn't negotiate. I didn't, no, nothing. Yeah, you want that much? And he wanted a lot, actually, like close to twice as much as I was making. You know? So, you know, I had no objections. Just, yeah, I just need the guy, and, you know, thank you for considering. Thank you for working for me. Thank you for accepting my offer. So, in case of this guy, that two things bothered me: the competency and the, well, let's call it attitude or approach to, you know, approach to work. But as a hiring person, I also have to consider the rest of the team, right? You need to fit in, right? At that point, my team was like over 10 people, right? And all youngins. So now I have to consider, am I bringing in the 50, 60-year-old guy into the team? How is that going to play out? That would probably not even be a big issue, because our community, let's call it, in our team was very open, and I don't know, it was a really good team. But the guy, how do I put it lightly without offending anyone? The guy just plainly smelled, and I don't mean the smell where you just didn't shower yesterday, today, or you went to the gym and you didn't shower. You're a little sweaty. You're a little smelly. I can live with that. But the guy smelled like he, oh my god, how do I put it? He smelled like old poop. Okay? Like literally, like you took a poop, or you've been pooping for a week and haven't showered. Yeah. And, you know, now I have to consider bringing such a smell to my team, right? I need to also consider the rest of the team. Sometimes it's not only your competencies. Now, if the guy was fully competent and the second issue also with the authority, the second issue also wouldn't exist, right? He wasn't standoffish and seeming to be difficult to work with. So if those two problems didn't exist and only the problem of smell was the problem, that probably wouldn't have been a huge problem. I probably wouldn't have rejected him just because of that. But that was on top of those. So yeah, that was a rejection from me. And I didn't list that we never actually even talked about it. We never brought that up. I never brought it up, and my manager that was with me in the interview never brought it up. He was kind of leaning in his chair, like way away from the desk. So, you know, but no one ever brought it up. And this is actually, this is actually one of the simplest problems that you can fix, personal hygiene. It's not that difficult. Come on, yeah, this tip is done. And later I found out that the guy kept calling my manager after the interview, and I didn't get details, but from the short description that I received, he didn't take it well. He didn't take rejection well, and he responded with aggression, right, with anger. So another reason why he didn't get a job. And if he did, he probably wouldn't have kept his job for very long with such attitude. But the reason I'm talking about all that is, these are the considerations, that come into play, that you are not aware of as an interviewee, and you might be guessing that I didn't get hired because I'm too fat, I didn't get hired because my race, I didn't get hired because I'm a man, because I'm a woman, that kind of stuff. But sometimes it's or often it's a lot more factors than you're aware of. The same with a woman. Say you have a team where you have plenty of men, and again the hiring manager needs to consider that I'm bringing in a first woman to the all-men team, right? What are going to be repercussions? And say, now you have to consider, do you have people on the team that might have problem with that? By problem, I mean, they might not behave, that might impact their performance or something like that. I'm just speculating, not that I've ever had to consider something like that. But maybe, and you're thinking that, well, I didn't get a job because I'm a woman, which factually might be correct, but not because there's something wrong with you or there's something wrong with women. It's just, this is not a good fit for a woman, or we don't consider it a good fit for a woman. So it's not exactly a discrimination per se, and we always like to jump to those conclusions that it's not fair and it's discriminatory. Well, it's discrimination. Well, what is discrimination? Well, that is the interview process. You discriminate against people that will not fit in well or will not get the job done well, and you favor people who are competent and will get the job done. Yeah, that's discrimination. Now the only actual illegal discrimination and immoral discrimination is to discriminate against whatever trait or feature or I don't know, anything that is not work related. Like literally, I'm not gonna hire you because you're Polish. But if you're not gonna hire me because I'm Polish, because the rest of the team is, xenophobes, is that still discrimination? Well, I'm not gonna fit in well in the team because people on the team hate Polish people or hate any foreigners. They hate people with accents, and isn't that the freedom of expression? I have no idea. I'm not a constitutional lawyer, but in this case, you're kind of making a decision that can be interpreted as discrimination, sure, but you're not discriminating against foreigners or against Polish workers. You don't want to introduce a chaos into your team. So if you have two guys for the position, one is me and one is non-immigrant, and you go with non-immigrant, well, again, you're not exactly, I wouldn't exactly call that discrimination. You're just trying to do what's best for the team, for the company, That is your goal, that is your responsibility. And if that means that we don't hire immigrants, well, we don't hire immigrants. Freedom is a two-way street. As long as you don't hurt anyone with your freedoms, right? You don't take other people's freedoms, then you're free to make your decisions based on whatever criteria you want. And if that means, I don't hire women, or I don't hire men, or I don't hire Polacks, that should be relatively harmless. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, because I know there's plenty of rules when it comes to hiring and firing and stuff, and everything needs to be put in the nice words so it's not interpreted as going against the Constitution and human rights and constitutional rights. Sure. Yeah, I thought it was a bit shifted. Let's shift it back. The bottom needs to turn a little bit. So, I'm kind of glad I'm not in the position that our 55-year-old friend is. But I know I will be eventually. Eventually it's, I don't know, it's gonna happen to me. So instead of learning from my own mistakes, I try to learn from his. That's why I'm scrutinizing this situation. That's why I'm analyzing it. Because sooner or later this will be me. And I've been aware of that for quite a few years now. So I've been preparing for it mentally and financially, and you know, that's why I started the shop, because I knew, you know, that it's not gonna last. Nothing good ever lasts. That's just the way it goes. So it's up to you to prepare for that, and then when it comes, to actually execute on it. And none of those are easy, because you don't get warnings from life that, hey, next week life is gonna happen. Zero warnings, and life just happens, and nothing you can do with that. So what I've been doing for the past few days is plainly going out of my comfort zone. You know, on one hand, the advice from the guy from Life After Layoff is to, you know, specialize in something, right? That's eventually going to give you an edge over your competition. Or it might be easier to market yourself, easier to find a job, right, if you're specialized. As I said, that's kind of counterintuitive, but okay. On the other hand, you know, I already am specialized, but all the listings that I see nowadays, they kind of require you to be a jack of all trades. The specialization doesn't really work anymore. So perhaps, yeah, I would be, you know, I would have no problems getting a job in my specialty. But the problem is that there's a handful of jobs in that specialty, and most of them are already filled, and the rest of them have huge competition because there's other specialized people. So okay. So the bottom line is that all that advice that you get, that is so generic that it's on the verge of just being useless. Specialize in something, yeah. It might sound good on paper. It might sound like a good advice, because it does sound like a good advice, yeah. I'm not saying it doesn't. But there's more to that. I mean, no one's gonna give you the solution to your problems. Like simply, you know, just do this, press this button, and the problem goes away. And we're kind of used to that nowadays with Google and internet and stuff. Now with the neural networks and large language models, you know, we just want instant. We want to press the button and have all our problems go away. That has never worked that way until nowadays. And since it's, you know, since it's been working, since nowadays we have the abilities to get solutions with one click of a button, we just kind of expect that everything is going to work like that, and that there's always such a solution to our problems. But no. In every situation, especially difficult situations like these, right? Finding work and, you know, adjusting to the different market, you always have to think outside the box. Sure, as my grandma used to say, ask everyone around what to do and then do what you think is right. So sure, definitely, you know, get the opinions of everybody from everywhere you can. But then, when it comes to execution, you're gonna have to take all that knowledge and apply it. And no one's gonna hold your hand when you have to apply that knowledge. You know, the same. They say, I think on Life After Layoff, especially. The guy keeps saying that you have to be a CEO of your own career, right? You have to take your career into your own hands, because no one's going to give you anything, which is absolutely correct. Sure, but what does it exactly mean? How do you become a CEO of your own career? At some point, you just need to work. Simple as that. So you can't think like CEO. You gotta think like a person who needs to work. You know? All this advice that you can get from all these channels, it's so generic that it can't possibly be incorrect, right? You can't possibly say that, no, he's wrong. No, because, yeah, he's right. But it's kind of like, you know, politicians and celebrities, especially nowadays, getting into politics and stuff. They will say great ideas, you know, like we should fight the climate change, and yeah, okay, we all agree, but what exactly are you proposing we do? Are you gonna stop driving your car? Can you afford an electric car? Is the electric car better for the environment than the combustion engine car? None of these none of them go into specifics. They just throw those big ideas that no one can really argue with, because generally they're correct, but nothing actionable from these. So the same with the with those career advice and playbook. Someone on LinkedIn reached out to me with, "Hey, you want our playbook?" Because they actually phrased it or approached me with, have you noticed that the market has changed, and nowadays it's not like it used to be. You apply to hundreds of jobs and just to land one interview. So you want our playbook? Everything's in our playbook, and it's free. Yeah, I didn't take it because, it's free, fine, but no, I don't need your playbook, because I know it's just going to be vague, generic stuff. Nothing I haven't heard of, and definitely nothing I couldn't figure out by myself, So I didn't take it. But this is what this is what you might expect. Yeah, the market has changed, and now I need a book that will tell me exactly what to do. I'll do it, and I'll be successful. No, sir. There's no cheating in life. You can't cheat in life. You can try, but it's not going to be a happy existence. Well, I hope this wasn't too depressing, but I'm actually optimistic. I still have some time to find work. I'm gonna start applying again once I'm done with my side project, and once I finish my resume updates, and maybe do like 3 or even 4 versions of it, and start circling that around, see which ones get better response. But your resume is not really a big factor if there are just plainly no jobs. If you get no one to send that resume to, then that resume doesn't really mean much. But that will do. That concludes our 2 repairs and a lot of stuff about job finding. If you're in the same situation, come join my Discord. We support each other, we share our successes and our failures, and that's what lets us survive. In group, you can survive a lot more than an individual possibly could. So definitely surround yourself with good people, support the people that are around you, and eventually it'll happen. Eventually something will work. Alrighty, thank you guys very much for watching. I do appreciate you, and I shall see you tomorrow.